ecosystem is a delicate balance made up of many complex interactions between the organisms that comprise a food web. Add or subtract any part and the ecosystem might collapse. The effects of any one change to a food web, no matter how minuscule, may cause catastrophic effects down the road that are virtually impossible to predict. This is why invasive and non-native species introduced to the ecosystem are such a problem. In recent years, scientists have been studying ways to prevent the spread of invasive species. One of the main invasive groups currently being studied is Asian carp. They are a major threat to the stability of the ecosystem of the Great Lakes waterways.
If the current containment procedures aren't improved, the Great Lakes waterways may be in danger.
So what are Asian carp anyways? The term Asian carp refers to 7 different species of carp, 3 of which are highly invasive.
The invader species of carp are black, bighead, and silver, all of which represent risks to the Great Lakes ecosystem. Invasive carp can grow to be quite large, with some specimens reaching up to 100 pounds. The average weight of an adult carp is thankfully only around 30 to 40 pounds. Now, the bighead and silver carp are both filter feeders, meaning they eat microorganisms and plants, normally around 5 to 20% of their body weight per day. Black carp, on the other hand, feed primarily on mollusks, like mussels and snails. There have been no reports of breeding populations in any of the Great Lakes, though the carp have been found in all of the lakes with the exception of Lake Superior.
So how did they get here? Asian carp are obviously indigenous to Asia, but were brought over to America to help clean out retention ponds for aquaculture and water reclamation plants. They've also been used for scientific research.
Due to flooding and both intentional and unintentional releases, the carp have spread and established breeding populations in many waterways in the United States, including the Mississippi, Missouri, and Illinois rivers. With the sanitary and ship canal, the carp have an avenue from the rivers they currently inhabit into the Great Lakes.
Well, why would that be bad? Asian carp, like many other invasive species, have no natural predators in the wild.
The carp are highly destructive on the ecosystem, competing with native fish for food and often uprooting and destroying plants to eat. The black carp eat snails and mussels, some varieties of which are already endangered in the United States, and others are food for sturgeon, which face steep competition from the carp. Also, since some varieties of carp are filter feeders, it's very difficult to catch them with the traditional angling methods. Finally, silver carp are notorious for their tendency to get scared by boats and leap 5 to 10 feet out of the water. With their size, collisions with boats and boaters can cause fairly severe injuries. Injuries attributed to jumping carp include black eyes, lacerations from the fins, broken bones, and concussions.
Is there anything good about them? There really aren't many positive impacts of the Asian carp as far as the ecosystem is concerned.
Most varieties are edible and have a fairly decent flavor, but due to the bad reputation of the carp, there isn't a market for them as food.
What's being done about them? At the moment, the most prominent measure taken to prevent the spread of Asian carp are electric barriers placed in the Great Lakes feeder waterways.
The barriers electrocute the water around them. This discourages the movement of the Asian carp from rivers into other waterways, such as the sanitary and ship canal.
Is it working? At the moment, it seems like the barriers are doing their jobs, as no stable carp populations have been found past the barrier at the moment. Unfortunately, the barriers are limited as electrical current is detrimental to the other fish in the rivers and can pose a real threat to the people if they aren't careful. The electric barriers at the moment are a temporary patch as they only contain and restrict the movement of the carp, instead of eliminating them or at least reducing the population. The carp may be able to bypass the barrier eventually.
Well, is there a better solution?
A couple of alternatives have been proposed, including carpicides and synthetic sex hormone research. Carpicides are toxins that would theoretically only kill the carp while not having any other adverse effects on the ecosystem. Currently, lampricides are used to control sea lamprey populations to some success, so scientists are trying to apply the same principles to the Asian carp problem. The proposed synthetic sex hormones are a different option that would not kill the carp outright. The idea behind these is a series of chemicals that would corral a carp into certain predesignated areas by imitating carp hormones. Both of these solutions are currently being researched as a more viable alternative to the ineffectual barriers.
It's important that people are educated about the Asian carp epidemic so that the danger doesn't extend into the Great Lakes. Hopefully one of the more powerful options for restricting the carp population will be finished and implemented soon, but the problem isn't exactly going to vanish overnight. It's important that people chip in to help prevent the spread. Don't release carp where there aren't any. Don't use juveniles as bait, and don't release carp you catch back into the wild. In order to preserve the Great Lakes ecosystem, Asian carp must not be allowed to invade any further than they already have.